Some friends recently participated in a charity couch or 5K, in which they could choose whether to donate to participate in the run, or to sit on a couch watching other runners. The catch was, if for some reason you couldn't finish the race, you were welcome to sit on the couch, but you had to pay for the privilege. So it got me thinking, what else could people pay with, if they couldn't finish a race? This was supposed to be a short piece, but once again it got away from me. I thought about dividing it into 2 installments, but there wasn't a clear place to break it. So here you go. It's 10 miles. You've got 6 months. You can train up no problem, Mel, my roommate, Sam, said as I stared at the race sign up on her phone. Over the last year, Sam had gotten into running, like really into running, and now she was preaching the gospel to anyone who would listen. I was not usually one of those anyones, much as Sam tried to convert me, but we'd gotten drunk with our other roommate, Anna, at home one rainy night, and at some point I complimented Sam on how good her legs looked. We were supposed to have gone out that night and were already dressed for the occasion, but when we saw that it was going to cost us $90 to take an Uber for 14 blocks, we opted for a girls' night in. Sam was wearing a hot pink bodycon dress that stopped at mid-thigh, and a pair of heeled black booties, and her legs really did look fantastic. Your legs could look this good too, if you ran, she'd said, flipping her long, black ponytail from one shoulder to the other. Maybe it was because I was feeling a little self-conscious about my own body last night earlier in the evening, when I still thought we were going out. I changed from a dress about the same length as Sam's into a pair of faux leather leggings because I was feeling self-conscious about my thighs, but for the first time I acquiesced. Okay, I said. I'll start running. If Anna does, too, I said, looking at our third roommate. Anna was a regular practitioner of yoga and Pilates, and pretty fit, but she didn't seem to like running. She rolled her eyes. Fine, she said. It's not as if either of you is going to shut up about running now. So how do we start? I asked, opening another bottle of wine and pouring way too much into our glasses. A lot of runners find, and this worked for me, too, that if they sign up for a big goal race in the not too terribly distant future, it motivates them to train up for it. So, like, I signed up for a half marathon 9 months ahead, did a lot of training runs and a bunch of shorter races, 5Ks, 10Ks, 10-milers, and by the time I got to the half, my body was ready. Okay, I said, conscious of the fact that I was swaying slightly where I stood. So if I want to do something in... I paused, trying to remember what month it was. 6 months? What should I sign up for? Does 6 months work for you, Anna? Sam asked. Hey, I'm just along for the team effort here, Anna shrugged, twirling a blonde curl around her finger as she started to scroll through TikTok. Okay, Sam said, that puts us in September. Let me pull up the all-city running calendar and see what's going on. Then, she launched a website on her phone and scrolled until she saw what she was looking for. So, I don't think 6 months is enough time for a half marathon, but you can probably train up to 10 miles if you really train for it. And, it looks like, there's exactly one 10-miler 6 months from now. Actually, it's a 17K, so it's about 10.5 miles. Here. She handed me her phone. Sam had launched the site for the race in question before passing the device over. It finished loading, and I looked at the race name listed at the top of the page, Shave or 17K, a fundraiser for the Metro Children's Hospital. Sam, I asked, why is this called Shave or 17K? Oh, I did this one last year, I remember now. It's so people who want to raise money but opt out of running can still participate. By shaving their heads? I asked, clutching at my long, red hair, which I'd spent an hour styling the natural waves out of before we decided not to go out that evening. For cancer. But by shaving their heads? I repeated. Yes, Mel. For cancer. Sam, it's called Shave or 17K, Mel. Either/or. Not both/and. You sign up for the 17K part. The shave is just for people who don't want to do the run. Or, she paused, for people who don't finish the race within 3.5 hours. What? If I remember correctly, when you sign up for the race, you agree that if for some reason you can't finish the 17K, you'll agree to the shave. What if someone gets seriously injured? I'd imagine they're exempt. Like, it would be pretty shitty to call an ambulance because someone had an asthma attack, and then to say to the paramedics when they arrive, sorry, could you hold on a sec? We have to shave her head before you put her in the ambulance. This is more for people who didn't train well and give up, or who knowingly veer from the course. Did that happen to anyone last year? Not that I'm aware of. What if I drop out beforehand? Will I still have to show up and be shaved? She took her phone back from me and scrolled a bit. It says here you can drop out up to 1 hour before and only forfeit your entry fee. It's just if you show up and then don't finish the race. See, she pointed to the FAQ she was reading. Now, she continued, handing the phone back to me, here's the sign-up page. This seems like a bad idea, I objected. It's 10 miles. You've got 6 months. You can train up no problem, Mel. Are you okay with this, Anna? I asked our other roommate, who was by that point fully immersed in her phone. Yeah, whatever, it's fine, sign me up. And I'll obviously run it with you, too, Sam added. You know you wouldn't have been able to talk me into this if I were sober, I said a few moments later, handing Sam's phone back to her, the thank you for entering screen still on display. Then I suppose you should have some more wine, Sam said. Training went surprisingly well and I was feeling ready for the race. Sam worked with a friend of hers who coaches distance runners and they came up with a training schedule for Anna and me that wasn't too brutal and didn't interfere too much with our lives. I hated the early morning runs and the earlier morning 5K and 10K races we signed up for as part of our regimen, but I had to admit I was feeling better than I had for a while, and my legs were beginning to envy Sam's. Anna seemed less excited about the way running made her feel or look than about the new TikTok followers she'd gained after she started posting about training. The week before the race, I discovered that she was not paying attention to my conversation with Sam the night we signed up for the race, and so she missed the whole part where if you didn't finish the race, you were committing to shaving your head and might not have learned about it at all had one of her followers not left her what she described as a weird comment. Mel? Sam? She asked, staring at her phone while the two of us stretched out after a run. Why did this person leave me a comment that says, for entirely selfish reasons, I hope you DNF? Sam took Anna's phone and tapped through to the commenter's profile. Oh, probably because he's a hair fetishist? Look. She read from his bio, 26. Love to watch hair fall. #Buzzit is better. I don't get it, Anna said, looking puzzled. DNF means did not finish, Sam began. I know. That part. So I guess he's hoping you DNF because then you'll have to, no, I definitely don't. Sam and I filled her in on the race rules. What? Anna exclaimed when we were done, desperately clutching at her golden curls. We asked you about it when we were signing up, and you said it was fine. I explained. I was drunk. Anna protested. So was I responded. So was Sam. I never would have said yes to this if I were sober. Neither would I conceded, but there's seriously nothing to worry about. The shave part is only if you DNF. We've both been training for this and we should be able to run the race no problem. But if you're worried, you can withdraw from the race and then it's a non-issue. I can't do that. What would I say to my followers? So then I guess we're sticking with the plan. Sam butted in. Next Sunday, we're running 17K together, and we're crossing the finish line and not one hair on any of our heads will be touched. Race day conditions were perfect. It was crisp but not cold, and the sun was shining bright overhead. Sam, Anna, and I arrived at the starting line at 6:30 in the morning and saw a stage being set up, equipped with 3 barber chairs. I thought I noticed Anna shudder slightly as she passed, but I didn't think we had anything to worry about. We were going to get through this race no problem. We headed toward the 14-minute mile corral. I thought we could run faster than that, but Sam assured me that it was better to be a faster runner in a slower corral than the other way around. And besides, even if we ran the 14-minute pace, we'd still finish long before the 3.5-hour time limit that would doom our hair. A woman in a pacesetter vest with a grown-out pixie stood by the sign that indicated we'd found our spot. Good morning, ladies, she called out as we approached. Gorgeous day for a run, isn't it? I'm Candy. We nodded in agreement and took our place near the pacesetter, but Candy clearly wasn't through talking to us. If you don't mind my saying so, you have beautiful hair. I wasn't entirely sure how she could tell what Sam's hair looked like, as she wore her thick black tresses in a French braid, or mine, as my red waves were secured tightly to the top of my head in a top knot. And then I realized she must be talking to Anna, who wore her blonde curls in a high ponytail that cascaded down her back. Sam and I had both suggested she do something more practical, but she said she wanted to look good in her finish line shots for social media. Anna seemed to understand the compliment was directed at her. "Thank you," she said, giving her ponytail a little toss over her shoulder. "I take it you're feeling pretty confident about today's race, then?" Candy continued. "Oh yeah," Anna answered brightly. "We've been training for months." "That's what I said the first time I ran it," Candy said, just as brightly. "And then I got really excited when I could see the finish line about a quarter of a mile away, and I started looking for my husband, who was cheering me on. And I guess while I was looking out for him I wasn't watching where I was going and I tripped on a rock and landed on my hands and knees and didn't wind up finishing the race." So, she imitated a buzzing sound as she passed her hand over her head. "I thought they'd make exceptions for anyone who was seriously hurt," I asked, suddenly more anxious than I had been for months. "They do. But I wasn't hurt all that badly. They actually gave me the chance to opt out, but it was my own stupid fault that I didn't finish, so I let them shave my head. Besides, I'd seen people who got way more hurt than I did agree to have their heads shaved if they DNF'd. The unwritten rule, at least amongst the diehards here, is that unless you get hauled off the course in a stretcher, if you don't do the full 17K, you do the shave." I started the race with hair almost down to my butt, and I went home with less than 1/8 of an inch of hair on my head. Anna gasped softly and I felt my stomach tighten. Only Sam seemed sanguine about the whole thing. Candy laughed at Anna's and my stricken faces. "Oh, honestly, it wasn't so bad. They donated my hair, so some lucky kid got one hell of a wig out of it, and I got to experiment with all kinds of different hairstyles while my hair grew back." "They donate the hair that's shaved off?" I asked. "When they can, yeah. If it's long enough and hasn't been bleached." "Mine was very long and very natural." "How long ago was this?" Sam asked, still quite calm. "About 5 years ago," Candy mused. "Your hair is still so short," Anna observed quietly. "Oh this." Candy ran a hand over her head. "It grew quite a bit after that first shave, almost as long as it had been before. I started pace setting, so I kind of had to finish the races, you know? But I had it shaved again last year. I was too pregnant to run the race, but I still wanted to contribute to the cause, you know? Besides," she added with a mischievous grin, "if I'm being honest, I kind of missed it. I'll probably do it again, when this gets a bit longer. Maybe next year, I'm not sure I can wait another 4. A group of runners approached our corral, looking a bit lost. "Excuse me," Candy said. "I have to go help them out. But I'll be your pace setter today, so I'll see you on the course." As Candy walked away, Anna wheeled on Sam. I turned, too, if not as quickly. "Sam," Anna squeaked. "It's going to be fine," Sam reassured her. "We're going to finish the race and leave here with your precious ponytail intact." "Mine too, Sam," I said sternly. "I'm not planning on leaving here today with any less hair than I arrived with." "You've got this," she said. "We all do. Now, who's ready for a run?" We did all have it, for exactly 8.5 miles. That was the point at which my stomach began a familiar grumbling. The pizza from the night before was catching up with me. I knew it would, but I had hoped that wouldn't happen until after the race. My lactose intolerance usually comes with a 12-hour delay, but I guessed with the jostling from the run, things were moving more quickly. Runner's trots, I'd learned this phenomenon was called early in our training. Mercifully, there was a porta potty about 50 yards ahead of us. We slowed our pace considerably. "Go on without me," I told Sam and Anna. "This could take a while." "We'll do no such thing," Sam exclaimed, although Anna, stroking her long ponytail, seemed ready to finish the race and ensure her hair stayed attached to her head. "We're in this together and we're not running to win. As long as we finish before time is up, what does it matter that you took a bathroom break?" I didn't have time to worry about the fate of my own hair as I sped to the bathroom. When I finally emerged, who knows how long later, Sam was leaning against a tree, and Anna was sitting cross-legged on a conveniently located park bench nearby. "Ready?" Sam called to me as I approached. "So ready," I called back, unsure whether my readiness was to keep running or just to get to a real toilet. Anna stood and stumped her right foot a few times. "Hold on, my leg fell." "Asleep." She made a few more stomps. "Okay," she declared, "I think I'm ready." I took that as my cue and started to run. "How are we doing on time?" I asked Sam over my shoulder. "Good," she said. "Catch up to me." We still have more than an hour to finish, with 2 miles to go. Piece of shit. Anna screamed from behind us. Sam and I stopped and turned to see Anna sprawled on the ground. We ran back to her side. What happened? Sam asked in full coach mode. I guess my leg was still asleep, Anna replied, holding back tears as she sat herself up. I must have kicked something and not felt it, and I just went down. Other runners, from the slower corrals, began to run past, looking at us with curiosity but not stopping to make sure we were okay. I thought I noticed 1 or 2 of them smirking as they observed the 3 long-haired women who found themselves in this predicament, knowing what was coming if we DNF'd. You okay? Sam asked, looking Anna over and brushing some dust off her clothes. Anything broken? I don't think so, Anna pouted. Just my pride. I extended an arm to help Anna stand. How's that leg? I asked. Still asleep. Anna shifted weight into her right foot and let out a little yelp. Well, I'm not asleep anymore, she said, but I definitely screwed up my ankle. I don't. A look of dawning horror came across her face as she realized the implications of what she was about to say. I don't think I can finish the race. Hey, I tried to reassure her. You know they're exempting runners who DNF due to injury. You heard what that woman said, Mel, Anna said in a monotone. The unwritten rule. Amongst the diehards, Sam contributed. Anna shook her head fiercely. I can't let my followers think I backed out. Okay, so then what? You 2 go ahead of me. Finish the race. I'll start limping toward the finish line. You said we have more than an hour, right? Maybe I can make it and everything will be okay. I'm not leaving you out here alone. Sam said. Then she turned to me. Mel, you keep going. Finish the race and then ask them if they can send one of their golf carts back for Anna. It's not quite getting carried out on a stretcher, but it should be enough to exempt her from even the unwritten rule. She hesitated, knowing that she was about to DNF voluntarily and what that meant, then steeled herself. I'll stay with her. You can tell them I DNF'd and once I get her taken care of I'll report to the shaving station. Sam, no. I objected. I can't let you suffer for helping your friend. Besides, if you and Anna hadn't had to wait for me outside the bathroom for so long, this never would have happened. I'll stay? Absolutely not, Sam said. I dragged you into this, so if one of us is having her head shaved today it's gonna be me. I looked around me. The running pack had thinned and we were clearly toward the back. The race was designed so that even the very slowest corral would have time enough to finish it if they kept a steady pace, so if we were behind even them, there wasn't much time to spare. New plan, I declared. You take Anna's left side. I'll take her right. We'll finish this race together. At our corral pace, we should have been able to run the last 2 miles of the shave or 17K race in less than half an hour, still with plenty of time to spare. But we were not moving anywhere close to our pace. We had to go slowly and took frequent breaks, practically carrying Anna. Her ankle seemed to be worse off than we thought. It was already swelling and turning a brownish shade of purple. She couldn't bear any weight on it at all, and she was clearly nauseated from the pain. So although Anna was rather petite, Sam and I struggled to get her across the finish line with any haste whatsoever. We crossed at the very back of the pack. Our final finishing time was 3 hours, 42 minutes, and 7 seconds. Technically, we are all DNF'd. The medical support team came running up to Anna, so they could assess how badly she'd hurt her ankle, and I heard a familiar voice behind us, Candy, our pace setter. Hey, she said. The organizers are fully exempting Anna from the shave. It's optional for the 2 of you. Technically you DNF'd voluntarily, but because you were helping your injured friend they'll let it slide. I looked at Anna, who was filming herself being tended to by the medical team, then at Sam, who was glancing nervously from Anna to me. No, I said. It's my fault. Anna rolled her ankle. I DNF'd because I hurt her, not because I helped her. You sure? Candy asked, her eyes drifting to the large red top knot perched atop my head. It looks like you have a lot of hair. Let me ask you this, what would you have done in my situation? I asked her. I'd already be at the shaving station, Candy replied. Then let's go, I said, trying to sound more confident than I really was. Wait, exclaimed Sam. If you go, I go. No, I protested. Stay here with Anna and make sure she's okay. This wasn't your fault. Anna will be fine, and I pushed you into signing up for this race. I'm coming with you. Shall we? Asked Candy, as she began to lead us toward the stage we'd seen getting set up. "Not so fast!" Anna shouted from behind us. We spun and saw her hobbling toward us. She had let her hair down and her blonde curls were flying behind her as she made the quickest approach she could. Had they seriously already given her crutches? "Anna, you need to get to a doctor," I exclaimed. "That lady in the med tent is a doctor. She said it's probably a sprain and gave me some ibuprofen and these crutches." "Okay, fine," said Sam. "But at the very least we should get you home so you can put your foot up and get some ice." "I'll ice it later, and the ibuprofen should kick in just a few minutes," Anna said. She was wincing, but defiant. "I can't let you go up there and shave your heads. You both would have finished the race if I wasn't so eager to start running again that I ignored the obvious signs that I needed a little more time. You only DNF'd because of me." "Anna, it's fine," Sam said. "I'm calling you an Uber. We'll be home soon, just looking a little different." "No," Anna said, setting her jaw as she shifted her weight on her crutches slightly. "You shouldn't have to do this because of me. But if you're so determined to have your heads shaved," she blinked and shook her head, as if surprised by what she was about to say. "I am, too." The race had been over for quite some time before we arrived at the shaving station, but there were still several people on site, most staring intently toward the stage where the shaving station had been set up. All 3 chairs were occupied. An adolescent girl, perhaps 11 or 12 years old, sat smiling as a barber made quick work of her long ash-colored hair, so light in color that she looked truly bald by the time she stood. Across the stage from her was a man who appeared to be in his late 20s, whose thick, black hair fell almost to his shoulders before the barber behind him placed an unguarded set of clippers at the man's forehead and drew it back, slicing a 2-inch wide chasm through his dark curls. He, too, was finished off quickly, only a shadow of his black hair remaining on his head as he exited the stage. In the 3rd chair, a woman about my age, with high cheekbones, sparkling eyes, and a stunningly beautiful curtain of auburn hair that fell in carefully manicured waves to the middle of her back, was being caped. "That's Dawn," Candy pointed to the woman in the center chair. "One of the organizers. She grows her hair out for a few years, and then she has her head shaved here at the event, just like I did." "She has beautiful hair," Anna squeaked beside me, knowing her time with her own beautiful hair was short. "She's a beautiful woman," Candy said, pointing her chin toward Dawn. "Wait till you see her without all that hair." As if on cue, the barber standing behind Dawn fired up his clippers and plunged them into the long hair at her nape, pushing them up and over the top of her head. Long strands of auburn hair tumbled past her face and onto her lap, and she was left with a white landing strip that bifurcated the 2 sides of her head. Dawn laughed heartily as the barber continued to strip her beautiful hair away, one pass with the clippers at a time. And all the while a barber's assistant stood by to collect Dawn's hair as it fell, creating little auburn bundles that would no doubt be donated. Would he be so careful with my hair when my turn came? Candy had procured a chair for Anna to use as we waited and set it down beside me, then moved a few feet away from us as if to give us some space. My beautiful blonde roommate sat in the chair, gripping my hand tightly as she breathlessly watched the events unfolding on the stage. I felt awful for her. Not only would she be on crutches for the next several weeks, it seemed, but she was also parting with her crowning glory, those thick blonde ringlets that were, in that moment, shining like gold in the morning sunshine. Standing on Anna's other side was Sam, who watched the stage stoically. Her braid had loosened over the course of the morning's events, and black tendrils that had escaped the plate framed her angular face. How long would it be before those tendrils returned to soften her sharp features? Would she look feminine at all in their absence? I reached a hand up to my own hair, and in a swift movement released it from its top knot. I wanted to feel my neck and shoulders enveloped in my red waves one last time. I had worn my hair short before a chin-length bob in the 5th grade, when my sister was born prematurely and my mom announced that she simply did not have time to brush out the tangles that magically materialized in my hair every day while also caring for a very sick baby. And then again my senior year of high school, when I was vying for a state championship as a swimmer and had my long hair chopped off at my earlobes, willing to make the unflattering sacrifice if it would get me onto the podium. It worked, but I decided not to swim in college, and I'd been growing my hair out ever since. Now 6 years away from that cut and the ensuing trophy, I found myself wondering how long it would be before my hair even reached my earlobes again. On stage, Dawn's cape was being removed. As the crowd that still remained roared their approval, she stood and gave her nearly shaved head an enthusiastic rub, then grabbed a microphone to thank the crowd and provide an update on the day's total donations, both in dollars and in hair. I watched the confident, clippered woman on the stage and, much as I hated to admit it, Candy had been right, though Dawn's hair had been pretty, and she was pretty along with it. This closely cropped Dawn was an absolute stunner. I could only hope I'd look half as good when I got up from my seat on that stage. Dawn asked if there was anyone left who would be losing their hair before the event came to a close, and we three roommates looked at each other, each hoping there was at least one more round of shaves to go before we were expected to take the stage. But no one in the audience made a move toward the shaving station. Sam and I drew closer to Anna, flanking her. At least there are 3 chairs up there, Anna observed. That way we're all up there at the same time to support each other, and nobody can back out. Candy hollered toward Dawn that there were at least 3 more to go, and approached the stage for a brief confab with the organizer and the 3 barbers. When they were done, I was surprised to see 2 of the barbers go back to their chairs and begin packing their things. Cindy walked back over to us. Looks like it's just you 3 still to go, she said brightly. Only thing is 2 of the barbers have to leave to get to their actual jobs, which means, I'm afraid, you're going to have to do this one at a time. Between us, Anna gripped Sam's and my hands tightly. I'll go first, she volunteered. Anna, no, I objected. You should go last. That way if you change your mind, you can. She shook her head. No, she said. This way, I can't change my mind and you both have to do yours. As you keep reminding me, it's all your faults. We helped Anna up and Candy began to walk her to the stage. Halfway there, the pair stopped and turned and I thought for sure Anna was going to say she'd changed her mind. Instead, she held her phone out toward Sam and me. I need you to record this, she said, as we trotted up toward her. I suspect it's going to make for a very popular video. Sam took the phone. Okay, she said. No problem. I guess we should video all 3 of us. Yes. Anna's eyes lit up. And let's not look at our reflections or in our phones until we're all done and we can do a video of all of us reacting to seeing ourselves bald for the first time. It was funny, I thought, how now that she was in content creator mode Anna seemed significantly less bothered by what she was about to do. Candy and Anna reached the stage, accompanied by the crowd's applause, Sam's and my encouraging cheers. Dawn introduced Anna as Candy helped our beautiful blonde roommate into the barber's chair, giving her shoulder a little reassuring squeeze. After finding a milk crate Anna could elevate her injured foot on, Candy did not leave the stage but rather stepped to the side of the stage so she could hold Anna's crutches and help her back down when she was finished. Sam began to record, and we watched as the barber draped Anna with a cape and spread her hair out over her shoulders. It gleamed like liquid gold, especially beautiful in the moment because it would so soon disappear. Then the barber took out a comb, lifting sections of Anna's hair up to see what he was working with and chatting with her as he went. Finally, he began to tie haphazard pigtails all over her head until she looked like a blonde Medusa. The barber leaned and said something to Anna, clearly still trying to smile now that she was being recorded, but I could tell by the way she nodded to him that she was nervous. Reaching to the tray beside him, the barber picked up a set of clippers, which he promptly brought to Anna's right temple, severing the pigtail there with ease. A few in the crowd shouted their encouragement as those first golden locks were handed off to the barber's assistant. Anna had spent years researching all the ways to make her hair grow thick and strong, but no matter how thick or how strong it was no match for the barber's machine. A few seconds later, he pulled the pigtail away from Anna's head, holding in his hand more than 3 feet of blonde curls. I studied with my friend. There was a very discernible missing chunk on the right side of her head, but still, with a little work it could be shaped into an edgy side cut. Anna could quit now, if she wanted. But the barber's next move eliminated that hope. He next moved to the pigtail right in the center of Anna's forehead and repeated the process, placing the humming blades below the rubber band holding the hair together and pushing them back, clearing a swath of hair from the top of Anna's head that could not be easily concealed. She now bore a hairline strikingly similar to my Uncle Pat, who insisted on keeping his hair long enough for a ponytail, even as the hair on the top of his head seemed to cut a rather hasty retreat from his forehead. Anna could not see herself but she was well aware of what was happening to her, and as she felt that section of hair come away, she began to laugh. and then to cry. She would alternate between these emotions for the rest of her shearing. The barber next tackled the pigtail near Anna's left temple, making quick work of it, and then went on to denude the whole left side of her head. That done, he returned to Anna's right side and repeated the process, placing his clippers below the rubber band and as close to Anna's head as possible so that not a hair would be wasted. From where I stood, it looked as if he was shaving her bald, but I knew from Candy that the clippers were going to leave 1/8 of an inch of hair in their wake, not that you'd be able to tell, with how blonde Anna was. Soon, the right side of Anna's head was cleared of all hair, and the barber began to tackle the top and back of her head. It was easy to see, now, what Anna would look like when this was finished, and for the foreseeable future. Her face was wider than I'd realized when it had been framed by all that hair. Heart-shaped, tapering to a pert, pointy chin. As the barber finished the top of her head and moved on to her nape, Anna closed her eyes and bit her lower lip, gazing up toward the sky. Then she began to laugh again, until she cried once more. The barber held up his last triumphant pigtail. All of Anna's enviable golden curls had been taken from her, and while it was strange seeing her without her mass of hair, like dawn before her, I could honestly say that Anna looked gorgeous. What were the odds, I asked myself, as the barber ran his clippers all over Anna's head one last time to check for spots he'd missed, that I'd look even half as good. The barber removed Anna's cape and with some help from Candy, she rose while the crowd cheered. Aided by her crutches and the helpful Candy, our roommate, still so beautiful, but now so different, returned to where Sam and I stood as we offered quick, encouraging compliments. "Who's next?" Candy asked, as Anna got settled back into her chair, looking slightly rattled. From that proximity, I could see the blonde fuzz that still covered her head, the barely there pelt that still managed to shine under the sun's rays. I began to step toward Candy, but Sam pulled me back. "Nope. I'll go. You handle this." She handed me Anna's phone and I aimed it toward the stage. Sam, uninjured, did not need an escort to the stage like Candy had, and she took the short flight of stairs to the stage 2 steps at a time. Was she eager to be shorn, or eager to get the shearing out of the way? Who could tell? She was just so blasé about it. Dawn introduced Sam to the crowd, which again cheered encouragingly. Sam sat and the barber draped his cape over her, lifting her heavy black braid out of the way so he could close the snap. This time he did not use his comb to determine his best course of action, nor did he try to engage Sam in conversation. He just said something brief to her, and she nodded emotionlessly. Then, without unbraiding Sam's hair, he took up his clippers and placed them at the center of her forehead, his other hand holding onto the plate to support its weight as he worked. The barber pushed his clippers into Sam's hairline, stopping after just a few inches, when he reached the start of her braid. He placed the clippers at her forehead again, just to the side of where he'd made his first pass, then pushed them back again, stopping at Sam's braid. In Anna's phone screen, from which I was filming Sam's shearing, I could see the hair peeling away from Sam's scalp and hovering above her head, the loose ends pointing in every direction while the braid itself stayed more or less intact. The barber repeated his abbreviated pass from hairline to plate, as more of Sam's hair came unloose in his hand. One of the long tendrils that had come loose from Sam's braid earlier fell to her shoulder, no longer attached to her head nor to the braid. Reaching Sam's temple, the barber made a slightly longer pass than he'd been making on her crown, but still stopped short of the braid. It was clear by that point he would be tracing the shape of Sam's plate the whole way around, until only the center section remained. Much of the braid would be unwoven by that point, but he'd still be able to remove the last traces of her long black hair in a way that might better resemble an unkempt wig than the totality of a head of human hair. I wondered what Sam was feeling, as the hair she'd worn long since childhood was severed close to her scalp, revealed to the world for the first time. As the surface area to which her hair was still attached decreased, did the weight of the hair start to hurt her? Or was the barber's hand supporting the braid enough to keep Sam from feeling as if her hair were being pulled out at the root? I studied Sam's face in the camera app as the video continued recording, but her expression revealed nothing. No laughter, no tears, just a blank gaze off into the middle distance as the barber's clippers continued to slice through her hair, no more than 1/8 of an inch from her olive skin. Soon, it was only the braid that was left connected. Above and around it, the bulk of Sam's hair seemed suspended in midair, slowly untwisting out of the braid. In the barber's hand, though, I noticed the tail of Sam's braid was very much intact. A few other long tendrils of shiny, ink-black hair had joined the first on Sam's shoulders. I wondered whether the barber's assistant would be collecting these as part of the donation of Sam's hair, the way he had picked up Dawn's shed hair, or if these strands would simply be discarded. Working carefully, the barber slipped his clippers under the top of Sam's French braid. Instead of making a pass, lifting his clippers, and repeating, this time, he made short pulses back and forth, the way you might if you were trying to remove a sticky label from a hard surface. Get too ambitious and the label rips apart. Take your time and it comes off in one piece. Even knowing that the top of Sam's braid would unloosen significantly when it was no longer attached to her head, the barber was trying to remove it from her head in one piece. I zoomed the camera in, figuring that if Anna posted Sam's video in addition to her own, her followers might appreciate the close-up, but also because I was intrigued by the process and wanted to see it more closely. Slowly, more and more of the braid came detached, the barber working up over Sam's crown and then pausing to readjust himself and his machine at the back of Sam's head where I could not see what he was doing, though I guessed he was now working from her nape up to her crown. It seemed like everyone watching was holding their breath until the deed was done. And then, all of a sudden, the last of Sam's hair came away in the barber's hand. I felt the entire crowd exhale, then burst into enthusiastic applause. The barber ran his clippers back and forth across Sam's head to rid her of any straggling strands of hair he'd missed on his first pass and removed her cape. She stood and, without a word, left the stage to more applause from the audience and walked back to where we were waiting for her. I had wondered if Sam's angular features would make her look less feminine when she was stripped of her hair, but the close crop against her olive skin only made her look exotic, not masculine. Not in the least. You look stunning, Anna shouted as Sam rejoined us, Candy following behind. Sam had been so stoic through this process, but now she smiled with relief at Anna. Now I had two roommates who were nearly bald. Bald and gorgeous. I had almost forgotten, as I watched them being shorn, that soon enough, I, too, would be having my hair peeled away from my scalp. Candy brought me back down to earth, though. You're up next, Red, she said, turning toward the shaving station. I heard cheers of "Go Mel" from my roommates as I followed the pace-setter turned escort to my hair's demise. Dawn confirmed my name as I took the stage. Noting my long red hair, falling in waves toward my waist, she announced into the microphone, "Let's give it up for Mel, our final shavy of the evening. Looks like we're about to get quite the finale." The crowd shouted their approval and I looked out at them, noticing how many of the heads turned toward me were devoid of hair. Many, I noticed, still wore their running numbers. I doubted they had all DNF'd, so I guessed there were plenty of people in attendance who voluntarily took on both the shave and the 17K. But then, in a way, what I was doing was voluntary, too. I looked toward my practically hairless roommates, who each gave me an encouraging thumbs up, then sat down in the barber's chair. It was surprisingly sturdy and comfortable for something that had only been brought in for the occasion, and would be taken away before the morning was out. The barber draped me with a cape. "The two before you, those were your roommates?" he asked as he freed my hair from beneath the cape and fastened it to my neck. "Yeah." Candy kind of filled me in on what happened, the barber said, taking up his comb and using it to lift up sections of my hair like he had to Anna's. "It's really nice of you all to do this, especially since you all have enough hair to donate." "Yeah. Is that the only word you know?" he asked, a hint of kindness in his voice. "No. Sorry. Just nervous, I guess. Ever had short hair before?" "Not this kind of short. But short, I guess." "Okay, so you know hair grows back." I could see him smiling out of the corner of my eye. "What are you nervous about?" "That I won't look as good as Anna or Sam, I guess." The barber circled around in front of me, looking intently at my face. I hadn't noticed it before, because I was so focused on what was happening to my roommates, but he was quite attractive. Chocolate-colored skin and chiseled features, topped by very short, freshly barbered hair. "I wouldn't worry about that," he said. "How can you be so sure?" "I'm a professional. I can tell." I must have shot him a skeptical look, because he laughed at me. "I mean it. You're going to look just as good as your roommates. Possibly. Better. I guess we'll find out in a minute." "How do you want me to do this? Lots of little pigtails like Anna? Just go for it like I did with Dawn?" "I think you were already here while she was in my chair, right?" I was. "Yeah. I noticed your hair, he smiled. His teeth were perfect, and his eyes lit up. I winced. Guess it's going to be a while before a guy spots me across a crowd because of my hair. You'd be surprised, he said. I'm Gary. Mel. I know. Oh, right. I heard Dawn come back over the microphone. Looks like someone might be getting cold feet, she said. Better make a decision, Mel. Some of us have to get home. Her tone was light, but it was clear she wasn't willing to wait much longer. By the time she'd been in Gary's chair as long as I'd been there, she was already halfway bald. So, how do you want me to do this? Gary asked again, meeting my green eyes with his deep pools of brown. What's your favorite way? For hair like yours? Straight down the middle. More dramatic. Okay, I said, steeling myself. It can still be made into wigs that way. Yes, he said, nodding to the assistant who hovered nearby. Honor over here will collect it and make sure it gets bundled up for the donation. I nodded, looking first at Gary and then at my smiling roommates. Go for it. Gary didn't need to be told twice. I didn't even realize he was holding his clippers until he flipped them on and immediately dragged them from my forehead to my crown. The vibrating blades were surprisingly warm, even as I felt a rush of cool air hit the top of my head. Something I'd never felt before. Gary quickly rubbed a thumb over the newly mown path that ran along the center of my skull. Another new feeling, of my head being touched without any hair in the way. No turning back now, he said, again bringing his clippers to my forehead and pushing them into my hair. This time, the hair he'd shaved off blew forward onto my lap. I couldn't believe it. More than 3 feet of hair, my hair just lying there instead of attached to my head. I picked it up and caressed it, trying to imprint in my mind one last memory of what my hair felt like, as Honor approached to gather it and the hair from Gary's first pass. On his 4th or 5th pass, when the top of my head was surely truly exposed based on the breeze I felt on it, I realized the warmth from the clipper's blades was spreading, traveling all the way down my spine. My cheeks felt hot. This feels kind of nice, actually, I said to Gary, if I forget the fact that you're shaving my head. How about you focus on that first part? That it feels nice. That's the whole reason some people do this. He tilted my head to one side so he'd have better access to the hair on the other. They shave their heads because they like how it feels. Yeah.